thank you. It's just an honor to be here. I've been looking forward to it a great deal. And I'm going tonight to pursue the whole concept of the perils and pleasures of being old. I'm 88, and I think I can speak about it with some authority. Um, what do I want for the people? I want you to read my work, or even better, I want you to listen to my work. I write very much in my mind is the sound of the poetry, and to read it live and to be able to look in your faces and to see your frowns and your smiles. That's a wonderful way to do it. The part of my problem in writing poetry is that I have written plays and I've directed plays and I've taught theater, and it sort of is in my blood. And one of the things which I've been doing recently is writing. The book, my book, Wild Man of the Mountain. There it is, Wild Man of the Mountain, and the publisher has labeled this as a drama in verse. So there's something about the sound of the language which is always so important to me. I like the fact that somehow I'm bringing the audience in to the coach beside me, and we're going through this little trip together. And there are no right answers. We go into the theater, and there are 400 people in the theater, and they all cheer at the end, and they're doing that for 400 different reasons. You know, and to be able to catch on to something in what you are working with is so nice. And that one of the pleasures of writing my poetry about old people is that I'm very conscious of I was at a local place for older people, a recreational place for old people, and I was reading it. And as I looked out at the audience, they were all shaking their heads, or some of them, because I was describing experiences that they had had. So that's very exciting. It's very exciting to get that connection. So let me begin. I'm going to read some poems from my book, just because because it's a wonderful book and I want to read it. And it is about an old man, and that certainly works for us. A little bit of background. There are two people. There are two people in this book, and reading it is very difficult because I have to read both parts, unless I'm lucky enough to have somebody to read the part of Molly, and that's really the nice way to do it. But I don't have a Molly beside me now, so I'm just going to read individual parts. The first lines of the book is by Molly, and she says, "The day he walked in, I wanted to throw him out, torn and scruffy, face and hands smothered with smudge." But she doesn't throw him out. She brings him his coffee, which he can pay for. And she asks him, "So tell me things. I seen you wandering around town." And his response is, "Yeah, I do. I wander around town and all over everywhere else, looking for stuff like this ashtray. See how it's cracked all around the edge? Somebody threw it away. but it's still got some joyful life in it, like this newspaper. Tear the picture out of this newspaper, and I put it in the ashtray. See how the ashtray, now it's a frame, a picture frame. That's what I do. I turn ashtrays into picture frames. And we a little later in the book, we come across a dog telling us his dream, what he wants it all to be like. A dreamland garden that he's building, scrounge all over clawfoot bathtub, next to the banged up fender of an old Model T, Scarface angel, always room for an angel, with the frisbee I found for a halo, an uninterrupted bliss. Everything here got a story, this rusty old bedstead. Look at its paint, all curling and chunky. Maybe a lady, gray hair and sick, wanted precious peace while she was dying. Or an old man alone, got a dog who crept every night under his blanket. Then this is a description of how he's going to build his dream. First, my tower got to have a foundation. Put the stained glass on top of it, a place behind for my hideaway, maybe get electric lights, maybe a mattress so I can sleep, wake up with the morning light, wrapping me in red and yellow, a tower so I can watch the eagles, geese when they migrate, gonna watch the sunsets, lightning and trees shake in a storm. Inside, I can listen to the raindrops, ping pong on the window glass, the whole world dancing for me like it never has before. Oh. And this is the last one from the book. The storyline is that a man from a museum came along and picked up one of his what he's built, and taken it away to show it off in the museum. In the process, he called what Doug is doing, he called it primitive. So Doug now, this guy got that snakeskin slippers, called me primitive, like early ancient time. Hey, go down to the pond, kneel at the edge of the water, early ancient time, reach with my bare hand to scatter the tadpoles. And I did it, kneeled down, my reflection in the immortal stillness of the water, my moment of looking at who I am. Okay, a long, curly, gray beard, but like early ancient time. I stuck my head in the reflection, got myself dripping wet, jumped up and yelled it to the sky. I am the wild man of the mountain. I am wild man of the mountain. And so it goes. And I love this book. And I love Doug. And I love Molly. It's interesting. I've worked for this with about 10 years. I've worked with this story, this book. And only now did it come to life when Molly came into the picture. And it's really interesting that have a different narrative for it. All right, let me shift now. I do have a chapbook in this going together, and all of the poems in the chapbook are about old people. And here's the first one. It's called Sitting Down Ain't Elegant, but it is easy. Stand with back to glider on the porch and flop. Drink in the sunshine, watch the birds and the butterflies. A couple of hours later, try to get up. Try to get up. Force a foot, either one, to hit the floor. Put hands on glider farm. Push, struggle, push. Unbend left knee. Listen to bones in your right hip crankle. Cuss this carcass with a clunker it's become. Wobble clumsy indoors to stand at the lunch table with my back to the chair, flop. And that gets more difficult with every day of my life. This is called Talkative Neighbor. It's a true story. She came here from Sweden at age 7, 70 years ago, strolling the sidewalk to the corner and back, dozens of times every day, often stopping to chat in by-the-book English. But today, an ambulance parked in front of her home. She struggles with the medics as they try to stretcher her, howling her fears in desperate Swedish. This one, my college roommate, he's one day younger than me, and he lives in Nyack, New York, which is by the river, on the River Hudson. In the stillness of time, I call it, for when. In his sailboat on the Hudson to see eternity in the flow of the river, in his daily walks to work in the center of Nyack, where thousands have worked before him to see his children, his grandchildren, his father, himself as a boy walking to school, passing by houses from the past, decked out in curlicues and colors, to an office where he pencils the straight line plans for the houses of tomorrow. Not for him the pulse of a big city corporation, but here today, in both tomorrow and yesterday, where he lives in a house built long ago, which he renewed himself with shovel and saw, where flowers flourish and fade with the season, where he finds what I seek for myself, at peace with the endlessness of the world. This next poem, all right, How to Fly a Kite. It's a young boy. He dangles the tail around his neck. Down we march to the beach, while I offer instructions to twirl the tail, finds a place with the wind behind us, gathers the lead string and runs. Wildly runs round and round in ever-widening circles, bursts with arm-flapping delight, the kite bouncing, sliding on the sand, his voice booms deep in his throat. I bellow out at him, commanding him to stop. That's no proper way to treat a kite. Oh, I chase him after that, snatch it away, erupt with indignation. And yet, when I look down at him to see his mournful eyes, I hear myself berating myself. You piddle-diddling old crab, who are you to pass judgment? When you were 8, this is exactly the way you would have flied a kite. It's a little bit more serious, this one coming up. There was a moment when I fell down the stairs and broke my neck. I hospitalized for quite some time, and then I recovered. I'm here, and I'm doing things. Fall down the stairs. I can't remember if my glasses are next to my bed or still in the car, but my body will never forget, long ago, the surgeon sketching his thumb across my neck. vertebrae 6 and 7. This is where we cut. The years ever since, I've needed 10 fingers to hold a glass of juice. Take a pillow with me to the dentist to hold up my head. Crossing the street, first I turn my body, my whole body to the left to make sure it's all clear, then to the right, then to the left again. On stairs, up or down, I must always reach for the railing. The peril of being old. Here we got Whirligig. This one has appeared in Sow's Ear, Whirligig. Backyard studded with pinks, reds, and whites of beans and aubergines, dawn to dusk, wields shovel and spray can on her knees, uprooting dandelions and creepy ajuga, prunes the pear tree, fingers and thumbs, the beetles in the aster bed, lugs a ladder to where a bee swarm settles at the top of a crabapple. In full cover bee gear, she snags the queen, walks home hidden under the swarm. I held her elbow once. At 93, wasn't it time to stop? She said with a fling of her hair, if I stop, I'll be lost. I'll curl up and die. But that isn't how she did it. First she died, and then she stopped. Very good. The family gathers. Yeah. Squeezed together tight for our 65th wedding anniversary. Christmas Eve, moving through another winter, the harmony of raucous laughter, tall tales and candlelight, an endless parade of creamy desserts, the holding of hands around the table. We don't fly to the West Coast anymore, so they have come to us. 3 children and their spouses, 5 children of their own. First time for all of them under our roof together. The horror, I believe, awaits them in what's left of the world. My dread of the dementia that poisoned my father's final days. The upheavals that haunted me wandering lost in my youth. None of it can wipe away my ecstasy. Sitting at dinner in my home, my life surrounding me. And this is the last one. And I love this poem, and I love to perform it. And it's when I do readings, I try my very best to read this as the last poem. It's called Poetry Night at the Bean Runner Cafe. He whispers, no one hears him. Again he whispers, never mind the poetry, gonna play the chair. Moves the chair beside the mic, sits on a second next to the first, shuts his old man eyes, and then tap-a-da, tap-a-da, tap, 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 tap-a-da, tap, tap, tap-a-da, tap, knuckles rapping, fingers snapping, tap-a-da, tap, tap, tap-a-da, tap, round the seat, along the edge, up the back and down again, tap-a-da, tap, tap, tap-a-da, tap, just a flicker, eyelids flutter, sparkling eyes in a leather face, tap, 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 grinning at the frontline seats, tap, 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 his eyes again go silent shut, tap-a-da, tap, tap, tap-a-da, tap, words dissolve into the air, what needs be said gets said with the chair, tap-a-da, tap, tap, tap-a-da, tap. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
to
for
that.
having me.
Pleasure.
Tony,
being here.
I don't think I can match that, but I will try. And I would love to hear from you on what you think about my poems as well. As far as old age is concerned, you write about old age, but that applies to all of us, right? It's all our past and all our future is the old age that you're writing about. So thank you for writing that. Much appreciated. I'll jump in, and just a quick note on Woman by the Door. I generally get asked as to what the title and what does the title mean to me. It can mean a variety of different things. I hope you get to read the book, but really, Woman by the Door is a collection that crystallized for me over the last 10 years, which is when I moved from India to the US. As was shared, it's coming out in February with Apprentice House Press. And these poems are just, they're the process of a woman by the door, which is basically, I believe, what every woman is, whether on the internal, whether it's physical, whether it's spiritual or geographical. For me in particular, these poems, therefore, if I take the point in time of the 10 years ago when I moved, poems travel in the collection in and out of that doorway into many spaces before and after, spaces that are both internal and external. My poems do come from lived experience, like every poem should come from. They cover memory, they're about grief, they're about identity, culture, and home. The last 10 years has been a year of change, of course, for me personally, because I made a huge transition, but also politically, both in the country I adopted, which is this country called the United States of America, and my home country, which is India, when we're going through a huge political upheaval as well, right? I don't need to say more about that. So you will see a flavor of those poems. The book is divided into 3 sections. The first section is called Apertures, which usually and mostly covers poems of memory and childhood. The second section is called Portals, which is the doorway, and it's about transition and change. And the third section is called Detours, which is mostly about loss and grief, including some poems about this great plague or pandemic that we've been living in. I will try and read a couple from each of the sections, depending on how much time we have, but I can jump in. One other thing I'd like to say before I jump in is a question I get often is, how do you bring your background and heritage, or do you bring your background and heritage into your work? The answer is very much so, very much yes. My background heritage comes through in my poetry, whether it's in form of language, words, music, the prayers I've grown up with, dressing, and you'll see all of that in a couple of poems that I read. I'm not going to translate if I'm using words in my language. I expect that this audience will find for themselves what that means and relish and enjoy the words as they come about. So that's really a big background. And I want to say a big, big thank you, huge gratitude to everybody who's joined. It means a lot. And even more important, I have my parents here. Yay! A big round of applause for my mom and dad. They are on screen and on video watching me, and I have goosebumps to have them here. And my sweetest and most adorable sister-in-law is here on screen as well. So a big shout out to both of them. And Tony, like you said, I start my reading with my life and more surrounding me. So how appropriate was that line? All right, let me jump in. My first poem that I want to go in with is called For Kabir. And the context to this is, we were chatting at the beginning before everybody came in. I am based out of North Carolina, like was shared, but I'm currently speaking from Boston because I've planted myself in my son's home. I'm a new grandma. The little child is 8 months old, and I refuse to leave because I think I think that's going to prevent me from entering old age, Tony, if I live surrounded by this little living poem that I'm surrounded with these days. So the first poem is For Kabir, and Kabir is the name of my grandson. For Kabir, I want to leave you hummingbirds meticulously feathered in pollen of bird baths, levitating conspicuously into liminal spaces, perseverance in stamina and speed humming along. I want to leave you the history lesson your great-grandpa wanted to write, the story of his father, Sardar Sahib he was called, or brave like a lion, and he had a voice that rumbled like oceans. I want to leave you the distance of home, the one your father wishes for with his breath and body, ever standing at the fountain of missed coins, offering to their tangled tales the reluctance of my accented verse. I want to leave you hymns, chanted, unspooled, memory of his rhythms, shared as lullabies, so enchanting, its sound, it seeps you in a nectar of a quivering voice. You close your eyes into lacquered sleep, hummed, quiet. I want to leave you with every dawn and dusk of my life stitched in prayer. For Kabir. I'll move on, and it's only appropriate that I travel generations. So this was the newest member or the newest poem in my life. I'm now going to talk about the oldest poem, which is my father, and he's here with me. And the poem is called Pagdi or Turbans. All my writing was born into the folds of my father's pagdi, one in each fold of his khaki, cotton, starched, smooth, sturdy. I attempted to shape stanzas with my tongue while my hands pulled, stretched, unbound all the 6 yards of cloth, unfurling beginnings. I proudly held at one end on mornings when I was called upon to help twist the length. The landscape of that moment had a spirituality, a gravitas. It snatched at my throat. Settling into creased circles, my voice had so much to say. Instead, in quiet observation, I gave it all my care, all my curiosity. His prayer had a very specific tempo. I never dared disturb it. I saw an intimate conversation sprouting into the empty spaces of teacher and disciple, unsaid. A sacred hum became audible. I heard stories being revealed as elders sang hymns in waves. Gentle metaphors were formed in faith as a circular wrapping folded and unfolded words. They became mine. Unborn into me as I held the fabric taut, was taught letters, my fingers at the edge of a long pagdi, he so reticently pulled at the other. Tugging just so, he said to me, each time we symmetrically styled a turban in performance together, you, my daughter, my poem. Pagdi, turban. I need to take a breath after that. The third poem is called My Brother's Dog, Laika. And you can listen to it and draw your own inferences about what it's about. It's from the third section of the book, which is Detours and about loss and grief. My brother's dog, Laika. For years, I have put its sound on a leash. Laika, your sparkling, slender body perfectly fitted into the world. Your nostrils quivered in sleep, making others jealous with how you got his attention, named so after the first mongrel in space, Laika. That Laika who joined the mission to validate space to prefix their story while fulfilling a sad end with a pounding heart. You, Laika, orbited him like a prayer. Consistently stable and kind, he held you like he was your earth, your eyes shimmering in sharp response, like darts to his deepening sound. Catch, catch, he said. Go catch, Laika. You were tonic to his youth, an unspoiled brat like him. You too gazed into the eyes of others, with a sweetness that crumbled their worlds. I saw in you and him an animated companionship each time you gracefully knocked at the door, racing, tumbling, folding, ears flapping, nearly blind into his arms. His days glowed in your presence, your lives tucked into each other as if in knowledge of what was to come. Your pictures bristle with friendship, simple moments so expansive, you staring at the camera, you both breathless, it jolts me back. It's raining today. I heard you bark outside, lingering as you did at the edge of his heels. I nudge your scent away and say, go, catch, Laika, go catch. It makes me want to ask though, are you both together now? Does he lean against you? In his blue plaid shirt, his cuffs unbuttoned, convenient, you at his side, quiet as you chew, so familiar, so present, so near, his hands linger around your neck, ready for a quick walk. My brother's dog, Laika. I'll read the next one. This is called Portrait of a Mother in America, and speaks for itself with everything that we've had in the last couple of years and the orange man who we had at the end. Portrait of a Mother in America. You are an unstoppable maverick. You tenderly define the fossils we shall be. You are restless as you lie awake. Your forgiveness is now a lung emptied of breath. You are monastic as you listen to the bells ring, your joy transient in yet another uncounted night. You are a widow wailing at the steps of a lake, a practiced palanquin bearer of skinned surrender. You are a witch with long arms. They embrace bodies showered from dilating skies. You are songwriter, fact narrator, watchwords are written in your inherited ink. You are awake, you awaken, teasing your dreadlocks into witness stands for the dead. You are yesterday's battles and tomorrow's cries. You beat in ballads, rehearse poems to throbbing drums. You are louder with each breath. You penetrate a deafening normal inside and outside. You are repetition. You sketch a scrawl that leaves scars on a country's cardboard map. You are hunger. Your sharp tongue bites into cornbread, ready again for another funeral pageantry. You are unabashed. You offer your breast to beating chests, fostering care for conjugated loss. You are ricocheted through our mistakes. Your prayer is a pause inside vacant throats. You are conversation to our silence. You pour questions into our coagulated eyes. You are a mosaic of common journey. Your pilgrimage is to places where multitudes died. You are sister, you are princess. You dance in compassion, holding your head high. You are your ancestors. You are healer. You make garments of their velvet flagellated skins. You are language, farmer of roots. You nourish the irreverence of all marching youth. You are baptized. You are ostracized. You drink from the thirsty fountain of wakeful lives. You are time of all moonless times. You rudder the sea to the sky. You swallow meteorites. You are inadequate in your cones. You ache in zamps that sing into life and afterlife. You are relentless, a stitcher of quills. You fill it with absence, thread it with sinew of barren wombs. Portrait of a Mother in America. Looking at the time here, probably do a couple more. The next one is called Becoming Planets, and it's after Greta Thunberg. If I could be a planet, I would like to be Mercury, bearing myself to the sun those times when I need brightness 7 times stronger than myself. Or maybe the clumsy Uranus is who I will be, stuttering sideways, self-effacing, but living the moods of my 27 moons and never having to explain myself before or after menopause. I have even speculated Mars, red in the face, evidence of my travails, receding further into my atmosphere. I would mock the men who stumbled for oxygen after kissing me. Well, maybe Neptune is who I will be, distant, forlorn, and cold to touch, icicles inside my craters as I paced centuries of black holes, no one to fault, my goddess. I am a planet, though, as every woman before. I bleed myself hollow, I swallow my volcanoes, I spin for all before me who were dwarfed, I draw orbits around names of all our departed souls, I weave a Kuiper belt with the fallen ringlets of my hair. I gather our screams till they pierce through veins of these stars, I repeat all of the above. I rotate, I revolve, I burn, I am born into the firmament above. I become my solar system. My tears crystallize into brooding planets, swaying to the blah, blah, blah of a flawed Earth as it still manages to trudge along. I'm trying to pick which one. I have some favorites. And these are all from Woman by the Door, coming out in February. Let me read the titular poem and then we can decide whether there's time for one more. It's called Woman by the Door, and it's a titular poem from the new collection. I sit by the door today, talk to myself. My voice quivers as it reaches into the valley where I had hidden you. I savor your ache, nuzzle you, swallow the leftover skies of canyons that were a fortress. I remember, in search for you, you smell of unfinished bread. You smell of unfinished bread pudding, the one Mama made. Each morning of caramelized sugar and toasted bread. I open the door and the silt of the outside storms inside, the tablecloth is drenched. A penance breaks dam, unease arriving in tears of all the years you waited by windows, your arms barricading them from the storm that brewed inside. I descend into the wet walls of your waiting cries like an explosion fluttering on sticky butterfly wings. Metamorphosis. Even a caterpillar practices formlessness, then arrives Shaitanus as a monarch, blanketed. Woman by the Door. How are we doing on time?
I think you wanted to read one more. I think you should.
Okay, all right. I will go for one more. Give me one moment. Sorry about that. I need one moment. And here's why it took a minute, because my mom's here and I don't want my mom and dad arguing about me reading a poem for him, but not for her. So I'm going to end with reading a poem for my mom. And this is for you, Mama. And it's called The Kitchen That Is Also a Monastery. I wish to memorialize the kitchen in your home, one where you meditate at the stove, a nameless penance. Each pancake a gospel for which we saved powdered sugar from a red tin jar. The red tin jar that deliberated monk-like, alone on your kitchen shelf. Your kitchen is also of abundance. It watches over the content manner of your chopping saintly, measured cubes of squeaky clean vegetables, sharp by cut, layered, onions first, pink blushed, potatoes squared, then dropped into a bowl of ice cold water. A slow devotional, playing on repeat, your eyes melting into tears, carrots and peppers always in juliennes, cauliflower florets perfectly pristine as you flick them apart, I remember watching in awe, your fingers elegant as they threw shadows on egg white walls. Your kitchen is also a monastery. I remember you humming a symmetrical prayer. With a quick move of your wrist, you submerged sparse offerings into a fiercely clean pan, one that sputtered spotless as it gathered your warmth. Meanwhile, you stirred life into us. Our faces cupped in the folds of your turmeric-stained hands, held by a firm wrist draped in a beaded rosary. Your kitchen is so radiant. I remember you as stubbornly insistent about the dailiness of Ardas, Azdasht for Sarbat Tabhala, as you were about the exact proportions in those healing spoons of pipe spice. I remember the kitchen epoxy being bathed in a dewy caress, a periwinkle, blue-purple gaze of heavens stopping by dawn. And I'll end at that. Although I said I will not translate, let me just share from this poem what a couple of words meant. And I'll repeat the lines about the dailiness of Ardas, which is really the daily prayer that is done in our family, in all Sikh families, which is a direct address to the higher power. And so you talk directly with no intermediaries in between, no priests in between. And that's called Ardas. And the Sarbat Tabhala means when you do that, you're actually praying for the goodwill of the entire community and not just for yourself. So that's what those two meant. I know I said I won't, but I was very tempted to share so people leave with the right context. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to have this and so delighted to share space with somebody like Tony.
I'm going to read one. This one's titled Imagist. I take pictures, thousands of them, millions maybe. I'm a photographer. Not because I take pictures, but because I'm accustomed to seeing the world as viewed through the lens of a camera. A digital world now, but I remember the crinkle of film in my hands, the smell of developer and stop bath, the slow reveal of monochrome visions under the dull red glow of safety lights. The lens gives me perspective. It brings distant things near, or encompasses panoramas wider than eyes alone can grasp. It delves into macroscopic realms, or into the ghostly infrared, or the ghastly ultraviolet, or looks beyond the visible sky into infinite space and time. It captures the fixed and the fleeting. I do not judge, I observe, I record, I appreciate, I choose a perspective, a viewpoint, and bracket what I see. Portraits, landscapes, seascapes, events, behaviors, objects, ironies, art, squalor, renewal and decay, wildlife in the wild, runners running, musicians musicianing, dramatists dramatizing, the kinetic whirling of tribal dancers, the pandering, polarizing postures of politicians, predators and intended prey, desire, rage, empathy, regret, the moon eclipsing the sun. Every created image is only the interplay of light and shadow, an insertion, an intersection of perception and metaphor, a chiaroscuro glimpse of reality. But time is dynamic. The concept of now is an ever-changing thing, uncapturable. But even a glimpse can be telling. The look of confidence or of fear, the moment before impact, the moment after, captured for later viewing and contemplation. I do not judge, but that does not mean I cannot have favorites. A dramatic silhouette that reveals beauty or a character unseen, expressions of joy, a photo so crisp it resolves order and structure where none was imagined, lightning striking the earth from behind ruddy clouds backlit by the setting sun, a beloved face, forever gone, reanimated once again in memory by the image left behind. The images taken is not all. A circular aperture viewed as a square, panned and zoomed to focus on some elements, not others, adjusted for brightness and color and contrast and sense of perspective. Truths past and present are always subject to interpretation, to editing after the fact, to suit the present purpose. Memory is like that too. I do not judge except to judge myself. The moment missed, the opportunity lost, fading light, the thing too quick to capture. Don't wait. Capture this moment. Live in this moment. They are all too fleeting, and they never come again. That's not photography. That's life.
Oh,
Thank you for listening.
it was wonderful hearing the other people read. I've been a great fan of Kashiana's poetry from the brief time that I've known her. If there's time, I've got two short poems to read. First is one that I came up with after sitting in a Waffle House one morning and mishearing the lyrics to a Carrie Underwood song, Blown Away. And here's what I came up with. All my sins. Hot Scirocco winds blowing across the barren deserts will not ever erase the tracks of all my sins, left like all the scars from the broken jagged edge of a shattered mirror shard, showing all the failings of this all too mortal man. No spinning of the prayer wheels or flying countless flags can wash away the stains, ink smeared upon my hands. No priests to grant absolution, nor prayers of penance to recite. Only you, my love, can forgive me and return me to the light. And this is a one I've just finished today, and some of you may recognize the reference. It's called Pulling a Duran. Just a fool for love, harlequin on your stage, painted smile on my lips. Watch me caper, see me dance, spinning wildly in a trance. Pour you the wine from my heart, a little bit sweet, a little bit tart, mixed with my tears, taste the salt. All of this is Cupid's fault. For all its brittleness, this heart still loves. Kitsugi seams crisscross in wild random tracks, patches from earthquakes, heartbreaks attacks, in and out of love's ICU. My heart's far too frequent abode. Friends keep watch, should it code. No mas, as I pen this little ode. Thank you.
So,
Thank
see,
you.
one of the things I wanted to tell you was that, see, Kashiana's grandson is named Kabir. There was an Indian poet called Kabir. And I thought I would just recite 4 lines from memory that I learned in school. And she can translate it for you. बड़ा हुआ तो क्या हुआ जैसे पेड़ खजूर पंछी को छाया नहीं फल लागे अति दूर. All right, so that's what it is. Okay, now I'll read. I think you'd have gotten it. So there we go. So here's my poem called Cry, Beloved Nation. Cry, beloved nation, weep bitter tears. White voices lament evil deeds. Brown voices sing of paradise lost. Black voices mourn generations doomed. On white ships, fleeing oppression, we came to a land of beauty and bounty. We tilled, we killed, we took, and we built churches to God, our gracious Lord. The brown people who welcomed us, we thrust out into the wilderness. Great laws enacted, great words spoken, all for white men and their progeny. Oppression returned to us in black ships, carrying humans torn from homes, from family, folks, familiar sights, dreams, to agony among white-faced cruelty. White man slew white man to protect his right to torture black men, women, and children. Even today, statues of these men taunt us. Black voices haunt us. White man took my beautiful body, left me a babe to suckle, a child as doomed to slavery as I. God gave me a lion's strength, but I must bear the white man's humiliation, and the contempt in my children's eyes gnaws my vitals, all for their sake. Separate always and somehow inferior, in the hellholes of our inner cities, we are doomed to live and die. Lead poisoned, unschooled, frozen by chill penury. Why do you torment us thus? We are not responsible for ancestral evil. We have made amends. We have given alms. Leave us to enjoy life's simple joys. The only way to exorcise the evil among us is to own it. Look at it in broad daylight. See the dappled skin of the serpent, to abhor every slither evermore. When church doors close out people, the Creator moves out to comfort them. The devil takes over the pulpit, inflames fear, greed, pride, kills shame. Oh, my beloved nation, may you ever be a home where every child may hope and dream, where the needy find refuge, the hungry are fed, justice rules kindly on all humans and animals.
Hi,
Thank you,
it's been a
Rob.
while since I've come to listen to the poems, but I'd like to do one poem. It's called Rock Trumpet. It's about a mandevilla plant that took me, Bill brought it home and I just thought it was gorgeous and kind of fell in love with it. So this is about that plant. Beauty, you dazzle. Blow your own horn. I will too. Outside the French door, spectacular. At dawn, the stem with shades of green like the emerald isle, ivory throated, 5 curved petals, deep, dark red blossoms, fanned out, awake, like soldiers at revelry. I watch. I can't take my eyes off you. Your lavish and triumphant pose almost daring me to turn away. But I trumpet your pose. Temperate, you brighten the gray clouds of fall. You've earned the right to come inside. That's all.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure and an honor to be with everyone tonight. And Tom and Kashiana, your work was just beautiful. I've got a book of poetry that's going to come out in February of 23. And Kashiana, it's got a similar arc to your poetry book, the arc of a journey, the beginning and the sort of the middle of a journey, the arrivals, and then the possibility of leaving again. So I'm going to read 3 poems tonight, one from the first 3 sections. Winged. I'm weary of concrete squares and black top tracks where we plod numbly, eyes cast down, painted arrows conveying wheels to one side, feet to another. I want to twirl like maple seeds loosed from the branch, dance the wall like a stair, ascend to the heavens. I want to caress the silky forelock of Pegasus, soar with quick syncopation 12 butterfly wing beats a second. I'll drift to a leisurely pace, float on my back on waves of air, flit through menageries of nectaries. A light in blue borage petals, lavender sepal, bulbous white orchid anthers perch ever so briefly in the lush ovaries of tulips and lunaria, while my own, once honeyed, no longer entice. Only the body is constrained by feet, expectations to obey the paved path. My dreams slip through, untethered to this world. The second poem is called Mary Oliver's Grasshopper. This morning's visitor, a vivid translucent green, balanced on the bright orange rim of my traveler's clock in my sun-darkened hands. Kahlo's palette, minus the black monkey, minus yellow and pink and blue flower bursts, minus her brown black braids, even though we both pull our hair up in the hot Mexican afternoon. Mary's ate out of her hands, icing from a slice of a friend's birthday cake. Why else visit a poet if not for sweets and a cup of tea, maybe a stroll through shady trees? Few come to share verse. Having just moved to this hillside casita, my shelves were bare. He wrung his tarsi, perhaps stalling, giving me another chance to proffer a delicacy. I offered apology, my hands holding nothing but the moment. Two visitors perched precariously atop time, slowing to the pace of his unblinking eyes, nothing to bring to our mouths, our tableau, minus the Portuguese cake, minus creamy nata and sugared lemon zest. Without sweet or salty, without something to celebrate, what remains is sour and bitter. Perhaps this is the true taste of time as it passes unnoticed, until there is only metaphor, which this grasshopper left untouched. And the last one I'll read tonight is called Silhouettes. Bright light behind me, only my shape remains. Clouds blacken against glowing skies. Black too, the white-breasted hummingbird and the pink-striped hibiscus, the curve of a jaw, the peaks and valleys of wind-tousled hair. Light and energy are eclipsed, features undefined. Youth blazes its shimmering sheen, the center of its own solar system, generating a magnetic pull to gaze directly in its face, to run toward it without looking back, to leave everything behind, to be once more smooth-skinned, glistening and dewy, kissed and kissable, aglow with possibility, radiating the certainty of being seen. What remains is to find grace when only an outline is there. Breath, formless, has given shape to this body. It's given it all its shapes, has crystallized and dissolved the clouds, fed the winds that howl and eventually still. Lit from behind, neither you nor I, hummingbird nor hibiscus, moon nor God will reveal its face. Thank you.
Okay, so I have a manuscript that's coming into print as well, and I think it's going to be also coming out in towards the beginning of 2023, I think February or March. And it's called Letting Gravity Speak, and it's about my life with my husband, and as he was mentally, as his mental state was deteriorating, and during that time of his difficulties, of his mental difficulties, and then after his death. And so I have a few poems here that I'd like to read from that manuscript. The first is called, I Dig My Feet in the Sand. I dig my feet in the sand at Brackett's Landing, where we chatted about this or that. Late afternoon's glitter still blinds. The waves churn and rechurn. Those same stripped logs with syncopated suck and slap, suck and slap. From Kingston Harbor, ferries show, then vanish under tinted clouds, stretched taut as that pause when exquisite proclaims itself and time breaks in the moment. Yes, now heaven's copper pendulum gleams and melts into the sound. the polychrome shimmer of your soul. There, suspended, your parting sign, miraculous covenant, the day I buried you. And here's another called Your Death Mask. Your death mask, rendered by God and etched on my brain, the cool blood of your brow, head tilted, lips open, my urge to taste your tongue. As our children carried you from the foot of the bema, I scuttled behind and saw your casket vanish in the hearse for your final outing. Through the open gates to a pile of sod, flooded with sorrow, I raised my eyes as a blackbird crayed Kaddish by a pine box carved with a Magen David. When they lowered you, swaddled in your woolen talus for warmth and dignity, we shoveled your dirge, thud after thud. Thank you. I don't know if I have time to read one more, but a short one. I swore it was you when the sun rose on the green, silent as the gold gathered. I saw your shadow by the ferns and salmonberry near the bluff, like the deer this morning, a silhouette passing. Later, on that same green skimmed by the moon, I heard you howl.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much, here. I got this one written here just a little while ago called Boxcar. Settlers in a boxcar, till to the railroad ties, wheels to the steel, echoes those before. In a railroad car, a grandpa smoking a cigar and playing his guitar. A church mouse out at the elbows, eroded, railroaded, exiled in his smile. It's been like that for a while. Ground down, town to town, one nickel, one dime at a time. To him, that's just fine. Sky eyes, so tough, rough enough. See it as it is, tell it as it is, straight up at his guitar strings, for that's his thing. Among tongue songs, hoping that others don't see this life. A ghost to eyesight, songs in his head. Ride the railhead. That will be his final homestead. Okay, this next one is called Hangdog. I had this published in my book called The Theater, and it's called it's spelled ER, not E. It's RE, not ER. The Theater. So it's called Hangdog. It's all a story about a person who is homeless. It's a whole bunch of poetry talk about this person who's homeless, and this is one of his friends, sort of like in the book here. Hangdog, curb hangdog, skeleton hat, cold skin, heavy eyes, shoeless, loose fitting clothes, dust between the fingers, picking an old broken guitar. Throaty, naked alcohol words, bears strings, blue notes, drained out chords, overpaid dues, steep steps, heartbeat in his footsteps, treads the concrete pain, butter thoughts, holy pockets, sponging silver from the weightless depth of the cracks of the sidewalk, swirling paper, pouring rain, can't see past the soiled sidewalks. In the shadow, of the light post. Thank you very much.
Leopoldo. Thank you, guys.
I just have one short one. I was looking for something to read and I came across an old one that I think I wrote this in my 20s and I had a moment of maturity there that I wanted to share. It's called Why Freckles Inspire Men. Freckle, a significant spot which usurps the edge of your lip. A well-placed reminder that the flesh is imperfect. A triumph, in fact, that such an anomaly can punctuate and like a pinch of rare herb can make beauty double poignant. To get that from an imperfection is a chance to watch the extraordinary silently leap before your eyes like any ordinary blade of grass upon the highest wind.